Hi, everyone. My name's Liam Kelly. For those of you who don't know me, my project is called The Cost of Living, Insulin Affordability. Um, just some background information on insulin before I really go into this. Uh, Insulin is a naturally occurring product in the human body. But for people with diabetes, they are unable to produce their own insulin or have become too resistant to their own natural insulin and therefore require insulin insulin supplement therapy in terms of just making sure your body is still getting insulin. Um, and so the history of insulin in this life-saving medication really goes as far back as 1920 to 1921 when it was first discovered by Frederick Banting. Um, and the really big deal and important part of this history that relates to this issue is that he sold the patent for insulin for $1 because he wanted it to be readily available and affordable for everyone who needed it, because he saw how life-saving it really was, because up to this point in history, diabetes was more or less a death sentence. Uh, and how that occurs is when your body is not able to use insulin, which is used to convert sugar to energy, at least within our bodies. Your body begins to have this acidic buildup, and then that starts to enter your blood and can make you very sick, as well as potentially even kill you. And this is called DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis. Um, and so now I know, I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, like, how does this happen if there's so many people being saved by this medication? So that leads into some of the background info also, which is um, the insulin market's been turned into a monopoly, for lack of a better way to put it, because three companies that I've listed, which are Santa Fe, Eli Lilly, and Novo Nordisk, have created a monopoly by dominating who can control that patent and who can create insulin. And in doing that, they are able to essentially set the price to whatever they see fit. And sadly, this has resulted in hundreds of thousands of people having to ration their insulin, or not even get insulin at all. And when that happens, you usually see higher rates of hospitalization and DKA, like I was talking about. And so I'm sure you're probably wondering, well, if this is such a big issue, how has it been allowed to persist for so long? So the answer to that is there's been a real lack of trying to address this issue over the years. Earl Hirsch, in his research, pointed out that there's a direct lack of government involvement in regulating prices, which is why this monopoly has been able to pretty much do whatever they want in terms of setting the price, to the point where many people now are having to sometimes pick between being able to pay rent, get groceries, or get their insulin. And so this leads to my intervention. And before I go into that, just the needs statement for my project is that people with diabetes need access to affordable insulin. And the goal statement is insulin is affordable. So the intervention that I kind of came up with is a smartphone app that functions very similarly to Yelp and OfferUp, in that it uses location-based searches to match you with potential people who are selling the insulin that you are looking for, as well as can connect you to nearby pharmacies that also would be selling insulin at the set price. They would also not require a prescription. And all this insulin that is being sold would be capped at a $35 price, just to remove any potential for people to exploit it and try to get a profit from selling insulin. So the theory that's really informed my thinking on this whole project and the intervention itself is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And for those of you who aren't aware about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, It is presented nicely in the form of a pyramid with human needs being broken down into multiple categories, and essentially to achieve more development as humans or as people, we need to be able to meet these increasing levels. And honestly, a lot of these people aren't even able to really get started on this pyramid if they're unable to meet even the physiological and biological need, which physiological needs are typically at the bottom, are the most basic needs. And I chose that because insulin is a very much a basic need. And by not having access to this, a lot of people experience high levels of distress or are not able to fully develop as they could if they had easier access to insulin. So the way I came up with for looking at like outcomes and how am I going to figure like how to measure that. The first one, we just want to know like and find out a way to have higher rates of individuals picking up their insulin, because when you can't afford it, people don't pick it up. And that is something that is able to be tracked, thankfully. And so the first indicator would just be pharmacies are tracking who's picking up their insulin and just making a note of it on a separate document. And additionally, the other indicator of this would just be that customers themselves are reporting more frequently having insulin or picking up their insulin. And for outcome 2, around more on focusing on the pharmacy side of the intervention, the goal would be to have pharmacies have more insulin readily available. And indicator A of that would be that pharmacies are having a greater number of insulin vials. And indicator B would be that multiple pharmacies, because ideally with this intervention, it would be a network of pharmacies, have a higher customer rating. And to measure all of this, we would basically use a customer satisfaction survey that would be sent out at the end of each transaction to the person who is purchasing the insulin, to then be able to kind of give feedback and say, like how kind of explain how easy was the process? Did you get their insulin in a timely manner? And so these questions would all be the same and always be delivered at the end of a transaction. And additionally, we would use kind of like a monthly inventory report for pharmacies kind of to keep track of the number of vials of insulin. And that is more or less how my intervention would function. I just wanted to thank you all for taking a moment to watch this, and hope you can recognize that insulin, while it might seem like a small stepping stone, a lot has gone into this issue and has still been going on. And hopefully with the way things are going, it will continue to improve. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.